Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let's take a look at the headlines first. 235th session of Rajya Sabha starts today. House will take up the financial business as part of ongoing budget session over 13 sittings. Rains and hailstorm lashed many districts in North Bihar. 42 people killed. Crops and property worth crores destroyed. Farmer commits suicide in the middle of Aam Aadmi Party rally in the national capital. Political parties trade blame over the death. Hours after it announced an end to air campaign, Saudi Arabia launches fresh airstrikes in Yemen, triggers concerns of setback to political settlement. Well, our top story, the 235th session of Rajya Sabha will begin today to further take up the financial business as part of the ongoing budget session of Parliament. The upper house will have a total of 13 sittings and the session will conclude on 13th of May. Our correspondent Vishal Daya takes a look at what is expected in this session.
The 235th session of the upper house of Parliament will begin on Thursday. Discussion on demands for grants of railways and general budget for 2015-16 and passing of relevant appropriation and financial bills will be taken up by the upper house. Discussion on working of 5 ministries is also part of the main agenda for the 235th session of the Rajya Sabha. The ministries to be discussed are Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Ministry of Law and Justice, Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry, and Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Meanwhile, with the opposition stepping up the offensive in the Lok Sabha, issues like land acquisition bill and agrarian crisis seem all set to remain in focus in the upper house as well. However, the government has sought cooperation from the opposition.
We are absolutely confident that the opposition will stand united. All of us are very clear. We have been in close coordination. They are engaged in a false propaganda. We are determined to oppose it and we are determined to expose this government and its policies.
समाजवादी पार्टी और बीजेपी में 36 का रिश्ता है और राष्ट्र हित में और किसानों के हित में समाजवादी पार्टी कोई भी समझौता नहीं करेगी.
It was the previous government which gave exemption for 13 laws where land could be acquired. We have made small amendments in that, so I don't think there is any reason why the opposition and the people in the Congress party should oppose that bill.
The 234th session of the Rajya Sabha, which constituted the first part of the budget session, was adjourned on March 20th, 2015. It was subsequently prorogued on the recommendation of the Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs. Vishal Dahiya's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
All right, Sanjay Singh, who's the political editor with the First Post, is now joining us live from the national capital. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for joining us here on Rajya Sabha TV. Mr. Singh, now, what is expected from the new session when Rajya Sabha meets today?
Aishwarya, to begin with, Rajya Sabha is meeting today because it had earlier been prorogued, essentially because the government was to re-promulgate land acquisition ordinance. So therefore, when Rajya Sabha meet today, I think as it is, there are 3 legislative bills listed for the business besides other regular proceedings. But I suspect today the day's event is going to be yesterday's suicide by Gajendra Singh Rathore at Aam Aadmi Party's rally, because that is one issue which signifies most as far as today's proceedings are concerned. Though the government would like the other proceedings to go on, but because if you see, Sitaram Yechuri was there, representative from Congress were there at Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital, then you also had representatives from Congress, and therefore this is one issue that is going to dominate today's proceeding in both houses of Parliament, Rajya Sabha also in particular, because it is meeting today, and also Rajya Sabha begins with 0 hour. So therefore this issue is going to be very, very dominant today.
Absolutely. And also speaking about the land bill, well, the government says that it wants to take up the land bill towards the end of this budget session. So how is this bill expected to fare in the Rajya Sabha, especially considering the developments that we had yesterday where a farmer committed a suicide in the Aam Aadmi Party rally?
As far as it is for quite some time, in fact, since the time this government, Modi government came to power, shortly afterwards, this land acquisition bill was in currency, was in political discourse, and that is one area where the two sides are very strongly committed to as to what their positioning is going to be with respect to the land acquisition bill. The government, of course, during the recess period had been trying to reach out to opposition parties other than, of course, Congress and some other constituents. The government was hoping that it would be able to reach out to some other political parties besides NDA constituent, because they have number deficit in Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha, as it is, they have introduced the ordinance and it will come. But now the government, of course, is going to go slow on land acquisition bill, because that is one issue which second part of the budget session is going to be dominating, whether or not this is going to be presented now or a while later. Government, in its wisdom, I think, is going to broaden the consultative process and actually present this bill much later. In the meanwhile, they will like other legislative business to be carried on, and two other significant bills are, besides host of other legislative businesses, are one on black money and other which government cleared yesterday, reducing age for juvenile justice from 18 to 16.
Right. Also, Mr. Singh, there's also, you talking about the other legislative business. Well, there's another bill on the GST. Well, this bill is unlikely to face any resistance as the principal opposition party, the Congress, is actually backing this bill.
See, GST is another one very significant bill, and of course deliberations are going on, that will go on. But politically, if you see, all political parties, in fact, would like this land acquisition bill to be in dominance, in talking points, and today's proceedings, I suspect, is going to be this suicide by Gajendra Singh is going to rock today's proceeding, and thereon this gives the spark point for Rajya Sabha, which meets today, to go on, because if you see political positioning, parties also go about political positioning and the message they want to convey to people at large. Every party is trying to convey that farmer issue is very dear to their heart. What happened yesterday has actually exposed whatever political parties were saying, and has stirred collective conscience of the nation, and therefore this thing, I think, is going to be more significant as to be there in political discourse as to who is saying what.
All right, Mr. Singh, thank you so much for that. Obviously, the agrarian distress in the country is going to be the top focus when the Rajya Sabha convenes today. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for joining and sharing your perspective on that entire story. Meanwhile, the internet neutrality debate was the focus of sparring between the government and opposition in the Lok Sabha yesterday, with Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi holding up the charge that here too the government was selling out to corporates. The government promised it fully supported internet access for all. Rejecting it was under any pressure on this issue. Here is more.
The net neutrality debate is a trial balloon floated by the government to hand over internet space to corporates. Rahul Gandhi charged in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, vowing to oppose it tooth and nail. Gandhi cited the fight for net neutrality on Facebook, Twitter and other social media platforms. He stressed that the Congress would keep up pressure on the government on the issue.
1 million people have registered to fight for net neutrality. Youth have voted. They are asking on Twitter, on Facebook, on all other applications. They are fighting for net neutrality, and this government is trying to carve out the net and hand it over to some corporates. I would request the government to please stop the TRAI consultation and to look into changing the law or writing a law for net neutrality. Thank you.
The issue dominated the 0 hour in the Lok Sabha on Wednesday, the government refuting allegations of being under pressure of corporates on net neutrality, insisting that it and not the TRAI would take a final decision on the matter. Telecom and IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad said the government stood strongly against any form of discrimination on availability of the internet to the masses.
सदन को बहुत विनम्रता से बताना चाहते हैं कि इस कंट्रोवर्सी के आने के पहले ही मैंने कहा था कि हमारी सरकार इस देश के नौजवानों के इंटरनेट के एक्टिविज्म का अभिनंदन करती है, जिसने हिंदुस्तान के आईटी पावर को आगे बढ़ाया। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने डिजिटल इंडिया की कल्पना की है, जिसे हम इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं, जिसमें उनका निर्देश है सारे देश के लोगों को इंटरनेट की सुविधा उपलब्ध होनी चाहिए।
The government has clarified that a committee has been formed to study the net neutrality issue. It's been asked to submit its report in the second week of May. The TRI has also initiated discussions on the matter. In the last few weeks, the launch of Airtel Zero and Internet.org have fueled a massive debate on the net neutrality issue, with activists and several websites initiating petitions against tampering with it. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that he is optimistic on the introduction of goods and services tax from the 1st of April next year. A constitution amendment bill on GST, he said, may be passed in the current session of Parliament. Jaitley met finance ministers of 18 states yesterday to discuss the roadmap for rollout of the GST.
A review of the progress of goods and services tax in the states at a meeting of finance ministers of 18 states with Union Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. The move will create a nationwide unified market and remove trade barriers in the form of cascading effects of taxation from April 1st, 2016. Jaitley said he had near unanimous support from the states, terming GST a win-win situation for all. He underlined that targets are well on track to being met.
We will go ahead with the Constitution Amendment in the current session of Parliament. Thereafter, there are going to be 3 legislations which the empowered committee would work on. Also, the work of the subgroups has been going on. Some interim reports, etc., have been submitted. And we are trying our best to work up to an endeavor where, with the support of the IT backbone which is being created, we try and maintain the target date of 1st April 2016.
Jaitley had offered to compensate the states for any loss of revenues following the implementation of the GST. He expressed hope that issues in the run-up to the introduction of GST would be smoothened out.
The bill has already been introduced. I'll be giving notice of it being taken up for discussion in the Lok Sabha. It's a constitutional amendment. It needs the support of 2/3 members of both houses of Parliament and thereafter ratification of the states.
Investors and manufacturers have long advocated the GST as a way to simplify taxes while broadening the tax base, adding as much as 2 percentage points to economic growth. It's been held up with some states reluctant to give their assent for fear of revenue losses. This meeting sends out all the right signals. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
All right, we'll take a very short break here. Much more on the other side. Stay with us.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha Television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha Television, democracy at work.
Welcome back after the break. Now, the Union Cabinet has approved amendments to the Juvenile Justice Act. The change will allow prosecution of people in the age group of 16 to 18 who are accused of heinous crimes. Now, experts had cautioned against this, arguing that it stifled their chances of getting reformed.
The Union Cabinet on Wednesday cleared a proposal to try juveniles in the age group of 16 to 18 under laws for adults for heinous crimes. This is after the Supreme Court pointed out the need to re-examine laws to see if changes could be done to have a deterrent effect.
Juvenile Justice Act also has been approved by the Cabinet today. An important feature is that while recognizing the rights of a juvenile, in the event he is in between 16 to 18 years, and the Children Court comes to a conclusion that because of the circumstances of his crime, and his psychological mental makeup, it is important that he be tried like an adult. In that event, the various disqualifications which is not applicable in case of a child 16 and below will be applicable in his case.
The Juvenile Justice Act has been under scrutiny since the fatal gang rape of a 23-year-old woman on a Delhi bus in December 2012. One of the 6 assailants was a 17-year-old. While one of the accused killed himself in jail, 4 others were sentenced to death. The teenager was given 3 years in a juvenile home, sparking debates that he was being treated leniently. Human rights groups, on the other hand, warn against changing the law, stating that each case must be considered individually. They say many young criminals are poorly educated and from poor households, often abuse themselves and need to be given the chance to reform. Juveniles committed 33,000 crimes in 2012. However, these form a tiny proportion of the total crimes in the country, far less than other nations like the United States. Bureau report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And Home Minister Rajnath Singh will visit Bihar today after a tropical heavy storm ravaged 12 districts on Tuesday night. Now 44 people were killed. Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, who conducted an aerial survey of the affected areas yesterday, announced a compensation of 4 lakh rupees each to the bereaved families, while the centre has also promised all help. Heavy rain and hailstorm destroyed standing crops and property worth crores in northern and northeastern districts of Bihar on Tuesday night. At least 44 people were killed and 100 others injured as strong winds uprooted thousands of trees, snapped power lines and blew away huts. Rescue workers are still trying to reach areas that are cut off. Home Minister Rajnath Singh is expected to visit the state today to take stock of the situation, even as Prime Minister Narendra Modi assured all assistance to the state.
जो मृतक के परिवारजन हैं, परिजन हैं, उनको हर जगह 4 लाख रुपए का भुगतान शुरू हो गया है। पूर्णिया जिले में तो अनेक लोगों का भुगतान हो भी चुका था, तो इस प्रकार अन्य जगहों का भी हुआ।
ये बहुत बड़ी त्रासदी है। मैं खुद कल जाऊंगा उस इलाके का दौरा करने के लिए। ये काफ़ी दुखद है। हम लोग इस पर काफ़ी चिंता हमारी सरकार कर रही है। भारत सरकार की तरफ से भी पूरी नजर रखी जा रही है।
With no alert coming from the meteorological department, people in Madhepura, Katihar, Saharsa, Madhubani, Darbhanga, Samastipur, Sitamarhi and Bhagalpur districts were caught unawares. The worst hit was Purnia district, where winds blowing at speeds of over 70 km per hour killed at least 32 people and injured over 80 people.
कितना आदमी को बेसहारा कर दिया। जो भी रोजी रोटी हम कमाते थे इस दुकान से तवा हो गया। ये कुल्ला से लेकर के वहाँ मठाही तक कम से कम 2-2.5 किलोमीटर में पूरे मोटा देश रोड पर गिरा हुआ है। सवेरे से रात से जाम फंसा हुआ है। इलेक्ट्रिक सारा छत बिछत हो जाएगा घर में देखता हूँ।
The deadly storm could not have come at a worse time. Cold wave, unseasonal rains and hailstorm had damaged crops in an area of about 14 lakh hectares in February and March. IMD Patna has issued warnings of more thunderstorms and rains in the districts over the weekend. Bureau report, Rajya Sabha TV. And for the second successive year, monsoon is likely to be below normal across the country. The prediction indicates parts of northwest and central India to be the most affected region. Now, releasing the first forecast for 2015, Science and Technology Minister Harshvardhan said that rains will be 93% of the 50-year average. He said that the chance of deficient monsoon is 33%, probability of normal monsoon is 28%. The prediction will add to the concerns of the government over the output prospects for major summer crops such as rice, cane, soya bean and cotton. Now, last year's deficient monsoon and unseasonal rains in the past few months destroyed standing crops across large parts of the country.
Quantitatively, the monsoon seasonal rainfall is likely to be 93% of the long period average. That there is a 35% probability of monsoon rainfall to remain below normal.
Well, last month's inclement weather may have caused widespread damage to the rabi crop, but there is still hope for consumers. While the wheat crop suffered maximum damage, overflowing buffer stocks are expected to hold down prices. Now, but the rains may still have some impact on fruit and vegetable prices, particularly mangoes.
The recent unseasonal rains may have wrecked many a farmer's life, but they may not impact prices yet, especially for wheat and rice. For against the requirement of 21 million tons of rice and wheat for April, India is holding buffer stocks of 49 million tons. Moreover, retail inflation has already declined, having softened to a 3-month low in March.
Extensive damage has happened to wheat. Certainly there will be a pressure, but because we have substantial food stock and storage of wheats available, so I guess government has the ability to intervene in the market and probably not let the wheat prices flare up.
The fall in prices is more substantial when seen over a period of 1 year. Consumer price index for food and beverages fell from a high of 9.66% in April 2014 to 6.2% in March 2015. But damage to perishable commodities like fruits and vegetables could well offset this.
I think this still does remain a cause for some caution at this point in time, despite the fact that we have seen easing of both wholesale and retail inflation in the month of March.
Worried about some fruits. So mango this year may not be as cheap as normally we are accustomed to, because mango crop has been damaged quite a bit.
The RBI's first bi-monthly monetary policy review predicted a decline in inflation to 4% by August and then rise by the year end. Further, initial reports say this year's monsoon could be normal. Heartening news considering India depends on the southwest monsoon for 60% of its net sown area. Krishnan and Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, on to some international news now. The Saudi-led coalition pounded Yemen yet again, hours after it called an end to the airstrikes on Wednesday. Now, Houthi rebels called for peace talks, but only after a complete halt of airstrikes. The fresh strikes come as a blow to political diplomacy in the war-torn country. US President Barack Obama warned Iran against supplying weapons to the Houthi rebels.
Hopes for a diplomatic solution dashed in Yemen. Just hours after announcing a halt to airstrikes, a Saudi-led coalition hit again, decimating the chance for peace talks. Houthi rebels said they are in for UN-brokered peace talks, but only after the complete stoppage of airstrikes. Fighting was reported in Aden and an army unit loyal to Yemeni President Mansour Hadi in Taiz.
The Houthis should be under no illusion that we will continue to use force in order to stop them from taking Yemen over by aggressive action. And so when the Houthis or their allies make aggressive moves, there will be a response.
The US sent out a strong message to Iran against arming the Houthi rebels. However, Iran took a diplomatic stand, reiterating their commitment to de-escalate the crisis in Yemen.
بالنسبة لإيران، إيران جزء من المشكلة في اليمن وليس جزء من الحل، وإيران ممكن تساعد في اليمن عن طريق إيقاف دعمها للحوثيين.
We are assisting our allies who are involved in a struggle to keep the radical Houthis from taking control of all Yemen. They're clearly being supported by the Iranians.
توقف حملات، توقف کشته شدن مردم بیگناه، اقدام مثبتیه، گام مثبتیه که در بحران یمن شاهد اون هستیم.
Tension is simmering on the ground. Hundreds of Houthi supporters held a rally in central Sana'a against Saudi Arabia. Protesters shouted slogans, held banners and flags, all in support of Yemen's former president Ali Abdullah Saleh.
Fighting for more alliance that all the Yemeni people will not be affected by any of their rockets or attacks or whatever. We will keep fighting. Not a 1,000 person won't go for a waste.
Saudi Arabia had called off its month-long air campaign against Houthi rebels in Yemen on Wednesday after they said that they have achieved their target. However, now the resumption of airstrikes shows the road to peace is still a long way off. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And some more international news and updates in World Wrap. Thousands of people gathered at the Miracle Square in Addis Ababa to protest the killing of 30 Ethiopians by the Islamic State in Libya. Clashes broke out between the protesters at the government-organized demonstration. The government blamed the opposition for hijacking the march and fired tear gas canisters at the gathering. The march was to show solidarity with the families of those killed. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Russia is arming Iraq and Syria to help them fight the Islamic State. He also called the radical militant group the main threat to his own country's security. Russia criticized airstrikes by a US-led coalition against Islamic State positions in Syria and Iraq and encouraged Washington to work with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad against the Islamic State. A man in a motorized wheelchair fell off the edge of a subway platform in Washington but was rescued by two commuters. The man slid off the platform of the US Street Cardozo station a few miles from the White House. One man quickly jumped onto the tracks to assist the fallen man, and when it was apparent that he could not lift him up without the help, a second man followed. And now all the sporting action in Sports Beat. Rafael Nadal eased past his Spanish compatriot Nicolas Almagro 6-3, 6-1 to reach the third round of Barcelona Open. World number 4 and second seed Nadal comfortably dismissed the unseeded Almagro, who is battling back and foot surgery that sidelined him for the second half of the last year. Meanwhile, in an early shock exit, Jo Wilfried Tsonga of France lost to Spain's Marcus Granollers 6-4, 6-2, while third seed David Ferrer defeated fellow countryman Albert Montrez 6-2, 6-3. The Paralympic Committee of India has been suspended by the Sports Ministry due to complaints about the poor management of the 15th National Para-Athletics Championships that were held in Ghaziabad. The Sports Ministry said the decision was taken after an inquiry was conducted by the Sports Authority of India into the complaints. The PCI was earlier derecognized by the International Paralympic Committee. The international ban is for an indefinite period of time. This is the third time that India has been suspended for violating rules of governance. Two-time World Championship bronze medal winning shuttler PV Sandhu made a winning return to the circuit on Wednesday. Sindhu advanced to the third round of the Badminton Asia Championships in the singles category. She beat Uzbekistan's Anett Kurdushian 21-6, 21-5 in just 16 minutes. Now, 8th seed Sindhu has been out of action since January due to a foot injury. That's all in this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks for watching.